Well, Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
Oh, I've never been so ready for anything in my life.
So last week,
You've got a loaded rapid fire here
I
too,
tell you
so
what, we've got some more Marcus Freeman comments coming up in
people are
rapid
gonna
fire.
love you.
So I know, we're just going to make everybody happy all over again because they want to hear from Marcus Freeman right now. So last week we saw the miraculous 4th and 16 play. This week it was the disastrous 4th and 11 decision in the fourth quarter by the head coach. Just under 10 minutes to go. You're down by 11 points, trailing 24-13. You've got the ball, your own 35. A timeout is called by the defense, and the head coach still keeps the offense on the field. They decided to go for it on 4th and 11.
Game, right? And so you play the percentage. Hey, we either got to get a 3 and out. If we punt the ball, and hopefully we get enough time to go have two separate possessions, or you try to convert right there and play the percentages of okay. So even if you don't convert here and you go 3 and out, you force a kick the field goal. It's still a 2-point game, and so that went into my decision.
All right, so there's Marcus Freeman on the decision. Vince, what do you think about this decision to go for it?
I understand his reasoning, but it was still a terrible decision. I mean, the defense was playing fairly well at that point. I mean, again, the defense played fairly well the entire game. You know, Jack Plummer never proved he could go the entire length of the field, really. I mean, consistently. I still don't think, like, I saw somebody in the Irish Breakdown, Facebook page, whatever, be like, why'd they go get Sam Hartman? They should have gotten Jack Plummer. Like, oh, God. It's like, I just feel like people just took stupid pills for breakfast this morning.
Yeah.
But anyway, you still punt the ball, and I get where he's coming from, but with 9.5 minutes left, you still got plenty of time for 2 possessions, man. Like, plenty of time. Like, how much faith do you have in your defense? Not much is what that tells me. And the way the offense was playing, that was not a smart call.
Well, that's the thing. It's one thing to make that call, but if you're going to make that call, you need to have something, again, this goes back to your offensive philosophy. You need to have something very specific dialed up right away that you think is going to get you that 11 yards, no matter what it is, whether it's like a quick pump fake one way and now you're looking the other and you expect it, someone to be one-on-one or like a Chris Tyree in space, or even like Jordan Faison in space for that matter, the way he played on those 2 catches. So it's just, you turned an 11-point game into a 2-touchdown game. And then ultimately you scored one more touchdown after that. It was basically garbage time at that point. And it was just not a good decision. And what you hope is this does not become the defining decision of Marcus Freeman's career.
Nope. Completely agree with you. I mean, it was just a bad move. It was a bad move. Everybody in the stadium knew it was a bad move, and it did. NH says it came across as desperate. You're absolutely right. It did come across as desperate because he was desperate.
He was.
He was very desperate in that moment. Very.
Let me ask you about a less talked about. It wasn't really even discussed in the broadcast. 2nd and goal from the 5. Or 2nd and goal from the 4, and there was an ineligible receiver downfield for Louisville. Notre Dame takes the penalty to make it 2nd and 9. So you push it back 5 yards, and then, of course, they get their first. This is the first touchdown drive for Louisville. They score the touchdown on the next play. I thought it was odd because, 1, you give them an extra down, even if you're pushing them back 5 yards. But 2, what do you always hear about the red zone? And you're an offensive, former offensive coordinator. Yeah, the space gets compacted. You gave Louisville more space to run with out there, and it ended up being pretty valuable. I thought that was not a very good decision myself to take that penalty. What did you think?
I never thought about it until you brought it up in the rapid fire, and then I went back, and I was like, oh, yeah, no, you don't take that penalty because you're giving them an extra shot at the end zone, and I don't want to give anybody an extra shot at the end zone. Plus, you're giving them more space and all of that. So I agree with your thinking on that. I was I never thought about it until you mentioned it. Like, of all the things that happened in that game that were bad.
Well, that's
I
the
didn't go
thing. There
back
were
to
too
that.
many other things that ended
Yeah.
up happening that got buried,
Correct.
but I had it in my notes at the time, and
Yeah.
someone actually texted me about it, and I was like, well, this is worth bringing up, it's just to
No,
see
I agree
what
with you.
Vince thinks about
Yet
this.
another
So,
bad decision.
I know. And there was another one, I thought, toward the end of the first half. Sam Hartman gets sacked, so it's 3rd and 13, 58 seconds left. They call timeout, and Hartman ends up firing an incompletion on the next play. Notre Dame ends up punting, and it gives Louisville the chance. They drove down. They ended up missing a field goal at the end of the first half, but by calling that timeout, you're leaving Louisville with time. I feel like Marcus Freeman has been really judicious and pretty good with some of his decisions on how he's used timeouts. I felt like that was not one of the better decisions in that case.
Because I don't want him spending timeouts to help the other team. Like, I
Right.
get calling timeouts because you want to give your offense an opportunity, 2-minute drill, all that stuff. I get that. But yeah, I did not like at the moment. I didn't like that call, to be honest with you. And I was shocked that they missed the field goal in that moment as well.
Yep, I agree. All right. So former football walk-on and lacrosse scholarship player Jordan Faison is now on a football scholarship. Here's Marcus Freeman on the receiver who caught his first touchdown pass in his first career game Saturday night. He took the walk-on off, and Faison, are you kidding me? Do I not have this? I'll tell you what. Let's talk about something else. It doesn't look like I've got that ready to go, but I can get it ready to go here.
All right.
Real quick.
Give us another one.
Yeah, let me give you something else.
Because I'm very curious as to what he says here about this. Because that was like a, how do I want to say this? That was about a $500,000 decision there.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So how about the schedule? A lot of people mad about the schedule and its impact. Here's what Freeman said about that.
I don't use that as a reason for a lack of performance. Now, every week you evaluate how you prepare, and that's something that we'll continuously do. What do we feel is best to get our guys prepared for this game? And so as the head coach, I take ownership of saying they weren't prepared the way we needed to be prepared to play Louisville. And so as I go back to this week and the preparation, I say, okay, what do we believe it's going to take to make sure Saturday night at Notre Dame Stadium we're ready to go? And so what I don't want to do, Ron, is use being tired as an excuse, right? And I don't want our players to use that as an excuse. We're not tired. You played Saturday night. You got all day to rest, and you know what? That's one part of playing at Notre Dame is about. Man, we're fortunate. We get 4 primetime games, and that's how we got to look. We get another primetime game versus USC, Notre Dame Stadium. And if you don't have the bubbles in your stomach, then you're not the elite competitor we need you to be, right? I think when you say that, man, maybe we're tired, it's our 4th primetime game versus a ranked opponent and all these other things, that just leaves room for excuses, and that's something that I won't let our guys do.
So what do you think about all this, Vince? I mean, we know it's not the easiest schedule, but what do you think about the impact potentially on the Irish?
I think there's an impact. I think it's being overblown, though, to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't subscribe to that as an excuse. I agree with Marcus Freeman. It's not an excuse for losing those games. I would put more of a fault on Marcus Freeman for not having his team ready emotionally, because they weren't.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that it's much less about the schedule. Look, everyone has tough stretches in their schedule.
Sure.
At some point. And they're night games. These are still young guys, right? Like they're 18 to 23, 24-year-olds. They're young guys. They're full of energy. I know that they've got tough schedules. Now, apparently last week was midterms week. I was thinking it was this week, but it was last week was midterms.
Yeah, he said some people had midterms last week. Some of them have them this week. Like, okay.
And, and I know that always has some impact as well. That's, like you wonder maybe how much of that. They did not have near the fire that Louisville had. Saturday night
100%.
for whatever reason.
Yep.
You know, whether it was the schedule, the way the last two games, you know, maybe what that took out of them, some guys with midterms, whatever it happens to be, they did not have that fire.
Correct. And I get that it's difficult to get up for every single game when playing Notre Dame is every other team's Super Bowl. Like, I get all of those analogies and everything, but the bottom line is they weren't up for this game, and they haven't been up for the past two games, and that's inexcusable. It's inexcusable. Sorry.
So for some reason, my Faison audio is lost. I don't know what happened to it. I had it earlier today and I can't find it, but we can just go ahead and talk about it. I'll play it tomorrow, but we can talk about it. I mean, the bottom line is Jordan Faison came to Notre Dame as a walk-on on the football team and a scholarship lacrosse player. They put him out there Saturday, cut a 12-yard pass, then cut a touchdown pass. And now, because of the fact that he has played in a football game, they have flipped him over to a football scholarship. He's not on lacrosse scholarship anymore. He's now a scholarship football player, and Freeman did say he's going to continue to contribute going forward. So what do you think of this development?
Well, like I said, it's a major financial decision. It's not coming out of Marcus Freeman's money, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to clarify what people are saying in the chat. DK says it was a $0 decision. Wasn't he on scholarship for lacrosse? He was on a scholarship for lacrosse. That is accurate. They don't give out full scholarships for lacrosse. There are 12.6 scholarships for Division I lacrosse. 12.6. I just looked it up.
Okay.
So there's 50 plus kids on the lacrosse team. You're not getting full scholarships.
Right.
Okay. So he went from a partial lacrosse scholarship to a full football scholarship. That's a pretty big financial jump.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So just want to be very, very clear on that. All right. So anyway, I think it was the right decision because they're so limited in the wide receiver room because of injury and all of those different things. They had to do it. And we've been talking about Jordan Faison for all of fall camp
Since
and
camp,
everything else. I mean, it's not no one that was at practice is surprised that he did what he did.
And look, there have been a lot of people who still continue to ask about Braylon James, and this is not a knock on Braylon James, but when you look at how Jordan Faison played in fall versus how Braylon James played in fall, like this is a deserved, well-earned scholarship. Jordan Faison was clearly ahead of Braylon James and some other scholarship receivers,
correct,
for that matter, during fall camp. And the only reason that I think that it probably took this long, one, as you would have heard from Marcus Freeman, the soundbite, was some injuries in recent weeks. But two, again, the fact that he was on scholarship with another sport. And so what they had to balance is, if we're going to play this guy, we can't just designate him as a walk-on who gets to play on the football team. He has to have a football scholarship.
Yeah.
Now,
so that means they had to have one available.
Yeah, and they did have
a
couple open scholarships still, so they're able to give that to him.
Yeah. Just because of the situation, it was a very interesting call. And now that he's on scholarship, you're going to see a lot more of him. I do think that. I think you're going to see more of him. Maybe not a lot more, but any more is a lot. So
what's going to be interesting is he is a slot guy, and they obviously have Chris Tyree and Jaden Greathouse. And
correct.
It's like they're doing well with slot receivers between those two, as long as Greathouse is healthy. But now you throw Faison in there, and he obviously did. Like, they need to figure out how they're going to get production out of these outside guys. That's the biggest issue they have right now.
And he's asking how many. Joe Allen asked how many years. He's a true freshman, so all of them is what he has left.
Yeah, so like he can, he's only played in one game as of right now. So depending on what he ends up playing it, he could potentially still end up redshirting, or so he has 4 full years of eligibility. He was only a freshman this year, freshman and walk on. So. Joe, thank you for the super chat. Joe, should we be concerned about Sam Hartman? I was at the Louisville game, and during every media on-field timeout. When the offensive staff and personnel huddled on the field, he stood by himself away from the team. And I've seen some other comments like this. I will say again, watching that game and especially rewatching when you can kind of see some of his, it's hard to pick up all of it on TV, but he did have 3 interceptions at Louisville last year. And, the fans were all over him, and he had 3 fumbles in that game last year as well. And it did seem like maybe that first interception got in his head a little bit. I don't know if it was that or what, but I don't know. What do you think, Vince?
I wouldn't read too much into one game, to be honest with you, as far as his body language or whatever. I mean, what about, all the other things he's been doing for his teammates and all the other ways that he's been there for you can't discount all of that from one night. And there were plenty of other times on TV where we saw him and Gino Guidugli talking on the sideline while the defense was out, on the field. So maybe it's a thing, I'll tell you what, I'll keep an eye on it during the USC game. But
I'm sure at the very least he was frustrated with himself for his performance. He's probably pretty hard on himself, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Anthony wants to know how many losses before you go to the young guys to get experience for next year.
Depends on the position that you're referring to. Is it a position where they're rotating, or are you talking about benching guys? You're not going to bench guys. No, I'm sorry. Just because they're a senior, you're not going to bench a guy just because they're older. You want to bench a guy because of the way they're playing. That's a different conversation. But you're not going to bench a guy just because there's a younger guy behind him. That's what I would say to that.
Yeah. No disagreement. Yeah. I mean, we kind of touched on it earlier. The
linebackers are playing fine, by the way. He said linebacker is the position he was referring to. What are the linebackers doing besides the stupid penalty by Marist? And J.D. Bertrand had another good game as far as I could tell.
And who is it that you're going to start playing at that position?
We have shown you on multiple occasions how Jalen Snead is not ready for a full-time role.
Yeah.
So who plays full-time? No, you don't bench guys just because there's younger guys behind them.
Right. The bigger question is they all still have eligibility, I believe, for next year. So the question is, are they coming back? Are they leaving? Yep. What's going to happen?
Correct.
Facilitate, inform. I generally don't like the hypotheticals. If we beat Ohio State, will we be undefeated right now?
Sure.
It's hard to say.
If it makes you feel better, sure. Yep. They'd be the number 3 team in the country right now.
We talked about it on Countdown last week. What if you had beaten Ohio State, but then you turned around and lost to Duke? How would
That's right. We did talk about that.
How different would the feel be?
Yeah.
In that case.
Yeah.
It would sure stink. You'd have the same record, but it would sure stink. And I don't know. I'll go with what you said, Vince. Let's make everybody feel good. If they had beaten Ohio State, kumbaya. Yeah. They're in the top 10. They're in the driver's seat.
Oh, yeah. They're in the top 3, if that's the case.
Yeah.
Undefeated, baby.
How about this one? So, Mario Cristobal and Miami were leading 20-17 against Georgia Tech with about 30 seconds to go. Yellow Jackets were out of timeouts. All Miami had to do was take a knee. The game would have been over. Instead, called a handoff, which was fumbled. 4 plays later, Georgia Tech scores on a 44-yard touchdown pass. Tim Hasselbeck was the analyst in the game, and the AC Network said it's the worst coaching mistake he has seen in his lifetime. What do you think about all this, man?
I got to tell you, I don't think he's wrong. I mean, that was one of the worst play calls of all. You want to talk about Marcus Freeman's play calls? You are more than welcome to do so. You want to talk about Jared Parker's play calls? You are more than welcome to do so. None of their calls were as bad as that one right there. None. 0. How do you allow that to happen? And you know who stripped him? Come on, Sean. I know you know the answer to this.
I don't actually.
Paul Mawala.
Really?
Yep.
I did not know that.
Yep.
The Penn High School.
Penn High School grad, Notre Dame, all the,
Idaho Vandal.
Yes, he's the one that stripped him of the ball, and they recover. And then how did that kid get so wide open behind the defense?
Well, that's the thing. It's like not only did you fumble, but then my
geez,
gosh.
It was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
And let's remember, Mario Cristobal's got more experience than Marcus Freeman as a head coach.
Amazing. Amazing. The lesson to be learned here is that all coaches make bad calls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it very well might be, as he said, the worst decision. It's right up there.
It's up there, man. Yeah.
The Miracle at the Meadowlands was the first one that comes to mind from the early 80s with Herm Edwards and the Eagles against the Giants. I don't know if Michael Hahn and any other Giants fans are still here or old enough to remember that. But, I mean, it's the same type situation. Just take a knee. That's all you got to do. Yeah. Take a knee and the game is over.
Man.
I know.
Terrible.
Fill in the blank. It's blank that Phil Jurkovec is out as Pittsburgh's quarterback. He asked to move to tight end, but Pat Narduzzi said today he will not play tight end for the Pitt Panthers.
Wow. I didn't. Okay. The blank is hilarious.
That's new information. Just got that last part today.
No, that's hilarious. The fill in the blank is hilarious because how many times has Phil Jurkovec been scheduled to play against Notre Dame once he left, and it has fallen through every single time. And it is comical. It's comical how many times that has happened and the manner in which that it has happened. I mean, just absolutely comical.
Yep. I wonder if we'll get a big IG post here in a couple of weeks.
It's coming.
When he comes to town. And they're not playing shipping up to Boston anymore over there, are they? At Notre Dame Stadium, no more cultural misappropriation or appropriation or whatever he called it last year.
It's just, I mean, hilarious. I'm sorry.
It is. And like you said, the fact that, he went to Boston College, it was all set for him to come in here and play Notre Dame last year. Didn't happen. Transfers to Pitt. Oh, guess who's coming to Notre Dame this year? Pittsburgh. Not going to happen. Now, something could happen to this other quarterback this week or next.
This is true.
It could still end up out there.
Pitt is a terrible football team, so anything can happen.
Yep.
I say that now, and then they'll beat Notre Dame. But,
Oh, my gosh. Don't even. You just put that in the universe. I can't even believe you did that.
Well, Major Payne already did. I read it.
If beats Freeman, people might riot. Whew, man.
Yeah, starting with us.
I mean, we're talking UConn, Syracuse territory at that point.
Yeah.
My goodness. All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate you being here today. Glad you were able to come in and vent.
Yeah, seriously.
A little bit more.
I just want to say I've been giving some people in the chat a hard time. I get where you guys are coming from.
I do too.
I totally understand where you guys are coming. You guys are diehard fans. That game was terrible, start to finish. It was hard to watch, and it felt like the last, 7 minutes or so of that game took about 2 hours to go by. It was horrible. It was long, and then doing a 3-hour post-game show afterwards was even worse.
It really did, because I started writing my recap. I can't remember how much time was but it was like the outcome was obvious at that point. And so I start writing my recap, and it's like, man, is this game ever going to end like two series later? It's like, what is even going on with this game? Just end already.
Like normally I want Notre Dame games to last as long as possible because we only are, as Marcus Freeman says, you're only guaranteed 12, and I enjoy them. I just wanted that game to be over, and it was never freaking ending. So I understand where you guys are coming from. I love all of you guys. And let's just say over the past week, I've just put it into perspective. And so I'm not as fired up about it as I normally am.
Yeah.
So
I don't blame you. And it's like, I know there was a lot of back and forth between Notre Dame fans and Louisville fans on social media. And I'll tell you what, there were a lot of Notre Dame fans surprised to find out how much Louisville hated Notre Dame, and I realize they don't play that often in football, but like having been around the Notre Dame, Louisville with some other sports that I've been associated with, there is a lot of venom on the Louisville side toward Notre Dame, especially when you go down there. They get their beer muscles flexed when you're down there. I'll tell you that much.
Especially for women's basketball and baseball. I remember the baseball days back when they were both in the Big East, right? Weren't they both in the Big East? Yeah. Yep. And I remember those were some drop down dragouts, man. So yeah, I get it. I get it. I just forgot about it, if I'm being honest.
I know. It all came out. I guess it sounded like they were just all over Sam Hartman, after the game when he was leaving the field and going through the tunnel. It's like, come on, man.
It's just a game, guys. Like, I get your passion, but like, settle down. I've never felt that way after a win where I need to like disparage.
Why are you still bitter after a win? Your team just won.
Let it go, man. Right. You won. How about, Ryan Day, win with class? How about that? Try that on for size.
Oh. Oof. Super chat at the last minute from David. He says, Vince, my man, thinking of you and the family this past week. Hang in there.
Appreciate it, man. Doing the best I can. This helps, believe it or not. Even though I look like I get upset, this actually helps.
Good therapy. That's right.
It is.
Glad you're here. And everyone, of course, has been thinking of you and your family as well. So,
yep. And happy birthday to you, boss.
All right. Thank you, my man. I do appreciate it. Another year older. I'll try to get a little sexier next year. We'll see what happens.
It's already done.
All right. Well, have a good night. Hit the like button on your way out and subscribe, rate, and review. And we will talk to you tomorrow. There will be whiteboard on IB Nation Sports Talk.